Oh hi, welcome to the companion video for our ancient breads. Links to those videos are in the description. We're going to make a sourdough starter with the grains available in ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt. Having said that, you can also use this starter for any recipes that require a sourdough starter. You can even refresh it with modern flours once it's stable. You might have read horror stories on the internet about how high maintenance sourdough cultures are and how you have to mother them and keep them away from harm. True, they are a bit fragile at first, but after a week or so, the culture is pretty much indestructible. No need to take our word for it. Ask the man who invented the Xbox. No, we're very serious. Seamus Blackley is a massive ancient bread buff, and in 2019 he made bread using flour from ancient Egyptian artifacts. Best part, he put it all on Twitter, so we can follow along. His Twitter feed served as more of a source for this video than we would like to admit. We still relied on articles and books, a bit, so don't let the internet scare you about missing a feed or other nonsense. Once your culture is stable, it will probably outlive you, just as those ancient Egyptian bakers were outlived by theirs. Oh dear, that's a bit gruesome. Ugh. To get fully authentic bread, we would need millennia-old floury artifacts, just like Seamus did. However, none of us here have ever designed a successful game console, and we don't think our local museum, which is this one, would let us near their priceless artifacts. So, in lieu of one of the rarest resources on the planet, we're going to have to settle for an approximation. Ancient bread powered by your modern local microbes. But first let's explain why we are using emmer and barley flour. The people who wrote the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Sumerians, had emmer flour. But they relied more on barley since the soil was quite saline. The Egyptians would also use a lot of barley, but they would eventually become more reliant on emmer wheat, even going on to develop new types of wheat from this, like Khorasan. To bring both worlds together, we're going to make a 50-50 mixture of emmer and barley flour. You can also go full barley or emmer, it will work. Feel free to use different ratios and leave a comment below as to which one you liked most. You will also need water. Many people will tell you to use bottled water. However, this is dependent on where you live. We are based in London and we can attest that the water here does not need any treatment before being used in a starter. Now, let's make our sourdough starter. As explained, we're going to use 25 grams of barley flour, 25 grams of emmer flour and 50 milliliters of water. The last thing we need is life. Your mixture contains everything you need for a thriving culture. Life will find a way. Having said that, there is nothing stopping you from adding some extra life. Wild yeast is all around you. Capturing and harvesting it can enrich the final flavor you get. We know Sumerians and Egyptians had palm dates, the skin of which should contain some wild yeast. We are going to run our water through a sieve with these dates, so we need it intact. Then add this water to our flours. Now, give it all a good stir and gently place a lid on top, but don't tighten it. The mixture will produce some gases as it ferments, and we do not want too much pressure building up in there, especially if you're using a glass jar. We are using a glass jar because it looks much better on camera, but you can use any container you have. Just don't use metals as they might start rusting. The first day won't be very spectacular. Be happy if you see a few tiny bubbles. On day 2, prepare another 25 grams of emmer, 25 grams of barley and 50 grams of water. Add this to your jar, which should now contain 200 grams of mixture. Give it a good stir and wait another 24 hours. Honestly, at first we did not see this coming. We were anticipating an increase, but this blew away all our expectations. It might look ready for baking, but you should keep refreshing it until at least day 5. We tested the starter at this stage and made a bread using modern flours. As you can see, it rose, but the crumb is extremely irregular, so you can work with this starter after only one refresh, but we recommend you keep going to get it a bit more under control. Here's how you do a refresh from the 3rd day until the starter is ready. Begin with discarding half. We know there's roughly 200 grams of mixture in there, so in this case, that means we're taking out 100 grams. Just keep scooping out mixture and weigh what you discard until you reach about 100 grams. Don't worry, it's fine if it's off by a couple of grams. If you don't want to throw away discarded starter, you can use it in different recipes, like soda bread. We'll put a recipe for these on our website. Now it's time to add in fresh mixture to feed the remaining culture. You have your standard dose of, all together now, 50 grams of water, 25 grams of emmer and 25 grams of barley flour. Take the jar from which you just removed half the contents and add in these fresh ingredients. Give it all a good stir and there, you are done for the day. Now, set aside for 24 hours. Then rinse and repeat this process for the rest of the week each day. As you can see, after day 2, this mixture becomes a lot more mellow. We like to think of it as slowly taming the wild yeast. As you repeat this scooping and refilling ritual every day, you will notice the starter getting more and more predictable. We never had a starter go wrong, but we appreciate this might come across as confusing. We've left simple written instructions in the description. From day 3 to 7, just repeat the same standard refresh and give it a smell each time you do so. Good smells are those that remind you of beer, vinegar and mustard. Sharp smells like acetone or nail polish remover indicate you're not scooping out enough or not adding in enough fresh mix. You can just adjust that balance and keep going. However, if it smells rotten, a contaminant got in there and you're best just starting over. If your starter evolves in a different pattern than ours, don't panic, that's normal. The temperature in your room, the quality of the flour, and even the microbial life in the air will all affect this. As long as it's alive, it's good. Don't worry and persevere. And on the 7th day, the baker can look at his or her jar of utterly bubbling flour and know, I have created sourdough starter. From now until you forever stop baking with this starter, you should empty the jar down to 20 to 30 grams. Some people say you should go all the way down to the scrapes, but that just scares us here. Those 20 to 30 grams you store in the fridge. You can now use this starter for pretty much every recipe out there that requires sourdough starters. Look at the recipe, note how much starter you need, and prepare like we're about to do for our recipe by way of example. For our Gilgamesh bread from our other video, you will need 180 grams of starter. Divide this into 2 for the amount of water and flour. That means 90 grams of water to which you'll add 90 grams of flour. If you want to stick to our recipe, you would need to split this up in 45 grams of emmer and 45 grams of barley, but you can start using different flours if you prefer that flavor. Add this to the jar containing the 20 to 30 grams of mature starter and stir. Once that's done, leave the jar out overnight and you can start making dough the next day. Now that you know how to make a starter, be sure to head back to our ancient bread videos. The links for the bread of the ancient city of Uruk and the loaves of the Egyptian kingdoms are in the description below. However, before you go, it would be great if you could leave a comment or a like, and it would be really amazing if you subscribed. Thank you for watching.